I want to introduce a new series here on the Bill Winke YouTube channel. I'm calling it The Setup. And I'm going to focus more on the gear side of things here. On the bow hunting whitetail series, I really want to stick with the strategies and the actual hunting itself. But there's so much more to bow hunting than just strategies. Some of the gear that we carry makes a big difference in the outcome of the hunt too. So I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to take a few more shots here, then I'm going to go into my office and talk about the rig that I'm going to be carrying this year, how I'm going to set it up, and why I favor certain accessories. Really, for me, it's all about making an idiot-proof bow. When that buck is close and the adrenaline is surging and my thought processes aren't clear, I still want stuff to work out. And a lot of times that just comes down to simplifying the pre-shot routine, simplifying everything about the situation so that you don't have to make a lot of decisions. Rehearsing, get the decisions out of the moment. But a lot of times too, it comes down to how simple your equipment is, how idiot-proof it is. So I'll talk about that next. First off, I want to talk about the bow itself. I've got the Hoyt Rx7 here, and this is their latest generation of carbon riser bows. I've been shooting Hoyt bows pretty much exclusively since 1997. I remember a couple of the bows along the way. One, I think it was the Ultra Tech, if you remember that old bow. I had so many kills with that bow. I was shooting a lot of does back then, and I always thought, well, if I made a little mark, made a scratch or etched out a line on the grip for every deer that I killed with it, there wouldn't have been any grip left on that one. I mean, I'd shot so many animals, and I thought, oh, there's no possible way that Hoyt can make a better bow. Well, I think it was 2008 or 2009 they came out with the Alpha Max. And boy, I remember shooting that bow, and I took my Ultra Tech, literally, I was shooting them both the same day, and I took the Ultra Tech and just tossed it aside. I mean, literally threw it 10 feet away in the yard because I knew I'd never shoot that bow again. And ever since then, I felt like Hoyt was on top of the game. The Alpha Max was the start of it, and I thought, boy, there's no way they can make a better bow than this. And then the next year it'd be a little bit better. And every year it was like that. It continued to improve, just small bits, small improvements every year. Well, this RX7 is the next step in that evolution of improvement for Hoyt. And even their machine riser, and I think they also have a cast riser bow too on their lower end price points. So don't neglect those. I mean, those are great bows too, the Ventum, and then like I said, some of the more economically priced models are really, really good. And I'll come back at some point and put together one of Hoyt's more economical packages and shoot it against this bow. And I'm sure we'll find that those bows can perform just as well. So anyway, don't get hung up on the price, but this thing is a pretty expensive bow. It's the carbon riser, which makes it lighter, but it also deadens vibration, and it deadens noise, and it's warmer in the hand, and it just looks cool. I mean, I love the way it looks, which, part of it is, you got to have confidence in your equipment, and the way that it looks kind of has to, grab a place in your heart. So that's a big part of it, but I'm going to take, a couple more shots with it, and you can listen to it and watch me shoot it. Then I'm going to go into the office, and I'm going to dive in deeper into the details of how I've got this set up. It's got a nice smooth draw, very solid back wall. I mean, that's so important to me because I like to pull against a hard wall. And this one's got a super hard wall. So while I'm aiming, I'm pulling back against that wall and squeezing. And that makes it a lot easier to make a surprise release when it's not mushy, where you're moving around in the back. So those are two things that jump out at me right away. Smooth, solid wall, quiet, no hand shock, and very little vibration. Let me put another arrow through it quick. I like the grip. I like a narrow grip. And Hoyt's grips have always been nice and narrow. You get used to a grip over time. And I feel like when you switch bow brands, a lot of times the thing you have to get really comfortable with is the grip before you can even talk about tuning the bow, because how you hold it has such a big effect on arrow flight. So anyway, I've gotten used to Hoyt grips. This is a good one. And Like I said, I love that back wall. It's fast. I'll have to pull up the actual speed numbers once I get back in the office. But yeah, those are sort of like first impression comments about the RX7. And time to get down to more details. Before I get back to talking about the bow and the accessories, I want to mention this new arrow that I've been shooting. It's a really nice, let me set this down. It's a really nice American-made shaft by Day 6, and this is a new company. They've been really focused on Western hunting over the years, but now they're getting into the whitetail market more. But this is a small diameter, very straight, very nice, clean carbon arrow. It's heavy enough to be one of the more ideal weights, I'd say, for whitetail hunting. This is one of their stiffer shafts, and I think it's 11, little over 11 grains per inch. And I'll get the final weight on this and talk about, you know, how many grains per pound of draw weight and so forth. But I always felt like somewhere in the, you know, 6 grains or somewhere in that neighborhood per pound was a pretty good number. So I'm shooting close to 80 pounds now. So for me, a 500 grain arrow is a really good whitetail arrow. And it's hard to find a small diameter arrow that's got that much weight to it, that much density. So we'll talk a little bit more about these Day 6 arrows too, but you can check them out, go into their website, and there should be a link in the description. I'll put one in there for you. But they only sell them direct to consumer. You're not going to find them at a dealer. So you have to go to their website and check those out. All right, so I'm in my office now, and I want to talk a little bit more detail about how I've made this bow idiot proof. And I started talking about the arrows outside, and one of the things that I'm always trying to do is find an arrow that penetrates well, so that if my shot isn't perfect, like let's say for example, I pull it just a little bit and I hit the shoulder. You know, we're aiming for a spot that's only a couple of inches away from one of the heaviest bones on the whole deer. So we need something that protects us from that just being a marginal hit, wounded deer, worst case scenario. So I like arrows that penetrate well. I like small diameter arrows, and these Day 6 shafts are 1/4 of an inch outside diameter. I like something that's just a little bit heavier, you know, something like I said in that roughly 6 grains per pound range. That seems like a really good balance for whitetail hunting. You get a fast arrow, fast enough at least to help offset some of the string jumping tendencies. You know, I've learned the hard way that you can't beat that. Even if you're shooting 325 feet per second, they still are going to get the jump on you. So you're looking for something that's fairly quiet, so if there's a little bit of wind blowing, you know, rustling the leaves in the tree, that maybe they won't hear the shot. I've had a couple deer like that over the years that I've shot at and missed, and then was able to get a second shot before they ran off because they didn't even know that I shot at them. So it does benefit to have a quiet setup, which means a quiet bow, like the Hoyt Rx7, and then a reasonably heavy arrow. So that's where I'm at with this one. It's in that, I would say, perfect sort of sweet spot of 6 grains per pound of draw weight. And this one has got some really clean components, really nice straight shaft. So like I mentioned, it's a new one for me. I've shot a lot of different arrows over the years, but this is a newer company, American-made, out of Casper, Wyoming, called Day 6. So check them out at day6gear.com. Okay, now let's move back to the bow. And 2 things I think about this bow help to make it idiot-proof for me. One is this full containment drop-away rest. It's the Hoyt Ultra Rest, and when you flip that up, the arrow is locked in place. There's a bar over the top, and then it can't move side to side very far. And when you tip the bow up for full draw, it's going to settle right into the V. And if you do get jostling around in the tree or whatever, the arrow can't fall out of the rest. So no matter what, when you hit full draw, the arrow is going to be resting in the right place. And that's super important, especially for a whitetail hunter, because we spend so much time if we're sitting with the bow laying in our laps. And the last thing we need is to have to worry at the last second about making sure that the arrow is resting correctly. So that's a big deal for me. The other one is this larger peep. I use a 1/4 inch, and this one is made by G5. I think it's called the Meta Peep. And the larger diameter gives me the ability to see better what's coming towards me, or what the animal is doing. Like I can stay in contact with them better because I have more peripheral vision through the peep sight. Also being larger, it lets more light through. So in low light conditions, I have a better chance of seeing exactly what I'm shooting at. And the older I get, the less sensitive my eyes are to light. So in other words, things appear darker every year past whatever age for me than what they were when I was younger. So I need all the help I can get. I do use a sight with lighted sight pins. This is the fixed pin sight from Fuse. And I'll talk about that more in another episode, about the sight itself and how many pins I use and why. I've had some bad things happen in blinds because I couldn't see my pins well enough. So having a lighted sight pin is one more way to make it idiot proof. You think you can register all of that stuff, you think you can pull the sight picture together, but when the time comes, especially for me, my brain goes into that meltdown and I start to panic if things aren't simple. So that's why, again, like I said, I want a lot of visibility, I want bright pins, but to offset that, when you use that larger peep, then you run the risk, if you're centering the individual pins, that you've got too much room in there and you're going to wander around too much. It's too hard to hit the middle. So this Fuse sight has a round pin guard, and I center that round pin guard inside the 1/4 inch diameter peep, and that makes a lot more precision for me than I would have if I was trying to center the individual pins. And you get used to that. People think that, well, I'm so used to centering pins that I'll never be able to make that transition, but it takes a few weeks of shooting for sure to force yourself to do it, but eventually you'll really like that system better. You can go to the bigger peep and you don't give up the accuracy that you've had using a smaller peep. So anyway, those are some of the things that I do to make my setup idiot proof, and I'm going to come back and talk more specific details in future installments of this series, but I'm also going to bring other people into this. There's a lot of people out there that really know how to set bows up, whether it's for tournament shooting or for hunting. We're going to focus on the hunting side, but I'm always curious what other people do, how they set up their knock loop, whether they use, something that's tied on, or whether they use, a standard, loop material. For a long time, I always attached my release aid under the knock. I didn't use a loop, and I felt like that was quicker, and I still feel like it is, but there's a trade-off there, so we can talk about stuff like that. So anyway, I hope this series that you'll find it interesting. It's going to be more gear focused, and I'm excited about doing this. I love the hunting, of course, but I'm kind of a geek when it comes to the equipment too. I love the stuff that goes along with the sport, so we'll talk about that more. I appreciate you joining me here for the setup, and we'll see you soon for the next episode.